Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? We're back with another team up review. I got Jay here with me. How's it going, Jay?
It's all right.
All right. And we're going to take a look today at Steve Bissette's masterpiece, really, I think. This is Tyrant #1. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like you might want to help out a little bit, go subscribe to my Patreon. Links in the description, gives you early access to everything I do, helps out the channel, helps to buy new comics. All right, so where do you want to start with this? I guess...
Well, I was going to say, like, you said it's his masterpiece, and I sort of I thought I had to think about that for a second. I think you're right, but like immediately...
Well, that's how you feel about Taboo, I guess.
Yeah, like immediately I thought of two things. I thought, one, Swamp, like the work on Swamp Thing is incredible, but
it's much more collaborative too, though.
Much more collaborative, but like what a collaboration, what a team.
It's wild stuff.
Yeah, and then I thought of Taboo, and I thought of like the legacy of that anthology.
Yeah.
And what it sort of gave comics and stuff like From Hell and Lost Girls and the kinds of people he was publishing in that, like that was a hell of a legacy.
It's an important milestone, but he was acting a lot more as publisher in that than as artist, right? Like obviously it has a huge place on the landscape, but it doesn't have that same kind of involvement, I guess, since he's not writing and drawing it.
Yeah, he's almost like an impresario, like really pulling together all these great creators. But you're right. No, you're right. I mean, this was his labor of love.
This is something he had in the works for what was it, like 10 or 15 years that he was thinking about this thing. Where it's just trying to like every once in a while bring it up to different publishers. Like, hey, do you want to publish my dinosaur comic that features no relatable characters, really?
That's right. Yeah. And I think there's a bunch of interviews that I've seen him do, and I think he's talked about the challenge of marketing this thing.
Yeah. It's like an impossibility.
It's an impossibility. Although interestingly, this is not an original thought, other commentators have made this point, it wouldn't be an impossibility now.
Oh, probably not. No, yeah.
And the market's so huge for graphic novels, but at the time this was a sort of labor of love.
So anyway, the book itself it's supposed to be the life story of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Steve Bissette was one of those guys who just got locked in on dinosaurs at a very young age. I think he said he wanted to be a paleontologist and just didn't end up going that route, but managed to find a way to make like paleontology adjacent content, essentially. He had this idea for a comic about a Tyrannosaurus Rex with no human characters in it, that he was very specific wasn't going to fall into the usual kind of dinosaur tropes. He actually goes into those tropes in the back matter on this, but I think Steve Bissette was kind of sick of the Lost World tale or the time travel tale or the dinosaur gets teleported to the future and runs amok in a city tale. He just wanted, like he's talked in interviews about reading books like Black Beauty, where you get a narrative from an animal's point of view, and he wanted to do that with a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And this was an ideal time to do that, actually, for a minute anyway. This is in 1994, and there is an independent comic boom going on with stuff like, Cerebus is getting pretty huge. I think we're not too far off from, it's going to stop being pretty huge, but we're still on the upswing. There's stuff like Rarebit Fiends. There's stuff like, From Hell, which he helped to make popular.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember first seeing an excerpt of this, I believe, in the back pages of Cerebus.
That's what I'm thinking too.
I don't think I'm making this up. I remember, I probably have the issue, I'm sure, but it was during that Spirits of Independence period.
Yeah.
And Sim was touring around, and he was opening the back pages of his comic Cerebus to like other independent creators. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing this comic there, but it was almost like too pure and hardcore a project for me. to like
Yeah.
seek out at the time. Like it almost had an instant like mythological status of like, oh, this is going to be this massive 10-year project about the life of a T-Rex, but it's going to be like super like scientifically sound and
Or as much as he could make it anyway.
Yeah, and I just remember thinking that is awesome, like more power to you. But like I'm, into, I don't know what I was into. I think I was getting into stuff like Cerebus, but I still needed that that like fantasy component or something. It wasn't.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I think I remember buying the first few issues actually. I think I was all in on the Spirits of Independence stuff.
Yeah.
So those titles I mentioned earlier, Stray Bullets, basically any kind of like black and white independent I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
That looked pretty slick because I was like 16 and I wasn't really, in the mindset of going and seeking out like the underground kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was still kind of the pop version you were looking for.
Yeah. The gateway drug.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I did have the first 4 issues of this, and I remember thinking it looked cool, but not really processing just like the amount of work in this thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like I've only recently just bought a bunch of them. I got 3 of the 4 issues at the Beguiling in Toronto.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, as like aesthetic objects, like they're just like flipping through this, it's such a blast from the past. Like it takes me, like it's like an issue of Cerebus. Like it just like the glossy cover, the newsprint, black and white. It really brought me back to that same time period when like I was like seeking out a lot of these kind of independent comics that had jumped on the back of Dave Sim's book. Like the one question I have for you is surely Cerebus was an influence on the ambition of this project. Like it's that idea of like the life, it's gonna be the life and death of T-Rex. I mean, that Cerebus is the life and death of the aardvark,
I think so. And I mean, the idea of, this having been in Steve Bissette's head for 10 or 15 years in 1994, I mean, that kind of lines up with how long Cerebus had been running at that time, actually, 15 years. Okay.
Yeah, and I think Sim was always supportive of Bissette, and I think they had a friendship at some point.
Well, I mean, in the late 80s around there, mid 80s, late 80s, Steve Bissette was talking in an interview recently about how Dave Sim was basically going around and offering to bankroll all sorts of established creators to try and move into independent projects, and pretty much all of them turned him down.
Yeah.
Although he did end up bankrolling Taboo for a few issues. And I imagine having Dave in your ear fairly, like reasonably often, just kind of like, hey, like it's not working out with DC or whichever. Why don't you just put it up? You got enough of a name, I assume that he's trying to use the influence he has to get more big name independents going.
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny. I saw an interview with Steve Bissette on Noah Van Sciver's channel. He's a cartoonist, and it was a couple of years old, this interview, maybe like 2020, 2021 or something. And they talked briefly about Cerebus, and Noah was like, "Oh, like I've never read it. Like maybe I should start. Like where should I start?" And Steve Bissette was like totally full on like, "Listen, I know this comic has problems, but like it's a great comic. Start at the beginning. It's a blast, and it starts to deepen as you go." And Bissette, it was sort of nice that Bissette, was, I think a lot of people have turned on Cerebus, but it was just a nice moment of Bissette basically telling this much younger cartoonist, "Hey, there's tremendous value in this series. You should feel free to start at the beginning. You'll like it. Go for it."
If nothing else, is an artistic gold mine.
Yeah, like we should. I just want to talk about Cerebus now for an hour, but anyways, we should talk.
we keep coming back to it, don't we?
Well,
but I mean, it's a big part of the time too.
This wouldn't exist without Cerebus. It just wouldn't. Yeah. I don't think it would.
And this was we were talking about this earlier. This was largely funded by basically the proceeds of the 1963 comic that Steve Bissette did with Alan Moore.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was watching the Cartoonist Kayfabe interview earlier today, and he was saying how, like, you know, it's a tale that we've heard out of guys doing one shots or something for Image for a little while now, where they came over, did an issue or two with Image, and made more money than they even knew was possible. And then the Image guys said, "Shit, those numbers suck. We're going to shut you down."
Yeah, I know.
And the numbers in question were like 5, 6, 700,000 copies.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And 63 was like maybe the best thing of that era for Image, but
arguably.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, but like let's flip this. Let's crack into this thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to say, like, again, we'll shut up about Cerebus, but even just like when the first page, like that, that inky planet.
I'm still on the cover here. So
just briefly on the talk cover.
Yeah, briefly on the cover. This is well, I mean, this is colored by Gerhard of Cerebus. So to bring it back again.
Shit, you're right. Yeah.
All of the covers for this were colored by Gerhard, and they look very nice. He's got a really nice touch with the brush.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have gotten the ash cans of this to see the black and white artwork, but
doesn't that opening planet, doesn't that just remind you of something out of like Mothers and Daughters?
It really does. It did earlier today when I was looking through it, and I'm honestly not entirely sure what it's. I guess that's the title, eh? Knock knock.
I guess so, yeah. Because
it doesn't seem to be referring to anything specifically, but we're gonna get all sorts of like just little sketches and shit of like fully rendered sketches of little Tyrannosaurus throughout this thing and through the other issues. And you realize just how often Steve Bissette is just drawing dinosaurs, like all the fucking time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like striking first page anyway. Lot of white media. Like he's using white spritz here, which is something I haven't tried myself, but I kind of want to. He just looking through this, I realized just how much he uses white media. It's a lot.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. But it's hard, and again, you can see. I think there's a bit of a Gerhard influence even on some of the hatching and
somewhat. I mean, he's an old school guy in that he, I think he came up through the Kubert school, and he would have had a lot of, I don't know, practice at all sorts of, because they really run you through your paces at the Kubert school.
Yeah,
make sure that you get a whole bunch of fundamentals down. And you use all sorts of different materials. So I think he would have been pretty familiar with most methods that Gerhard would theoretically use anyway. But we're going to get, these like big sweeping overarching shots of like first, just the fucking curve of the planet and then the landscape here of southern Alberta, I think it is. And there's some wild shit going on. Like page 3 here. I can see how he's drawing it. Like it's so scribbly. If you look at just like the black areas in the mountains, and like where he's just like scribbling with a brush. Same with over here, and I can see how he's doing all of this stuff with these random brush strokes all over the place. I just can't imagine turning that into something like the mindset to make it into a landscape.
Not just a landscape, but like you can see the way I don't know, it looks like clouds and gases are drifting over the peaks.
Yeah.
And it reads, but I know what you mean. Like there's a certain, it's like it's slapdash is not the right word because that has a negative connotation, but there's a kind of relaxed mastery.
Yeah.
To all of this, like it's not fussy.
Improvisational is closer.
Yeah, like it's just a guy totally in command of his materials.
Yeah, and we're also going to see that Steve Bissette hates a stagnant panel grid.
Yeah,
he's going to come up with some weird shit pretty much on every page. So page 4 here, we've got I guess this is a pteranodon swooping over. So this is our first character, really. He's going to drop us right into the head of the pteranodon in this case. And it's just, again, this is the kind of thing I can't even imagine trying to capture like an animal's thoughts. And he was going to do this for like, 50, 100 issues was the plan.
Yeah, like my sort of, I come at, because I write a lot, and I come at this comic thinking, like, I really enjoyed this, but I occasionally have the thought of like, man, what, how would this read over 10, 20, 30 issues?
Well, it's like, what do you do?
What do you do, right? Like, because the narration, I wonder if the narration would have fallen away at a certain point.
Potentially.
But that was a thought I had. Like, how do you handle this? Is like a storytelling challenge, right? Like, how do you make decisions? This is interesting. That's a very good first issue. The narration is doing some work.
Yeah, there's a lot of description going on. And I mean, because the impulses of the Pteranodon itself aren't exactly complicated. So he has to use a fair amount of description to kind of just flesh things out. But I have to assume this is something he considered when he, obviously got it stuck in his head. Okay, I need to write and draw the life cycle of a Tyrannosaurus. How do you write this? This must have been something that he mulled over for a long time.
Yeah, and so much energy in that drawing. Like, I love the, especially that big close-up of the head. Like, you see on the neck, you see almost like you see the kind of the furry featheriness, but also like the ruffles, and also like kind of
scaliness going on towards the back of the neck here,
like the muscles, the veins, and it's all, it's all being done. I guess maybe a little bit of white media, but
I think so for the vein. Yeah.
Incredible stuff.
It just, to me, speaks to like having a very clear vision of what you want your finished piece to look like, which I can't even imagine, like, to this degree.
So much energy, though, even if you look at the clouds in the background, like
on the page, what is this? 5 here, I guess.
Yeah, even underneath I'm looking underneath the close-up. You see this, like the speed, like, he's really moving quickly.
Yeah,
but
like on page 4 on the wings here, where he's just like, the wings themselves are just these really quick brush strokes, and he's not even trying for precision really, other than I think probably masking off the edges.
Yeah, and that's what I meant by that relaxed mastery thing. Like, it just looks, it's just again, it's not fussy, like it's almost like he's relaxed his eyes a little bit, and he's just shaping with the ink. And
it doesn't seem like he's really grasping for what to do. Like, it seems like he knows in for each texture really pretty much what he wants to do with the brush or nib.
Incredible.
And then flipped over to 6 and 7, and these pages are fucking wild. Like, you want to talk about, like, movement. This is all extremely fast brushwork, where the Pteranodon is swooping in because it's found some prey. Well, in this case, I think it's just a carcass he found. But, so he's making a Pteranodon, searching for food and diving for a carcass into like a 4-page sequence, which to me is crazy. Again, with these insane backgrounds, I'm pretty sure all these white swirls on page 6 here, are all white media.
For sure, yeah, he's cutting in.
Yeah, which like seems wild to me. I don't know. I think I've got like a bit of a hang up about trying to do pretty much everything in black, and then only for very specific things you use white. It seems like that that's not exactly Steve Bissette's particular method there.
Well, and it wouldn't, before he cuts in with the white, if you look at the scratchy lines of like the sky, it wouldn't have looked that great, but he has the confidence to know how to shape it with the white media, right? And really make it into something, give it a bit of structure. It looks like steam that's rising up into and mingling into the clouds. It wouldn't have looked promising like 2 minutes before that. You know what I mean?
No, probably not. Just just kind of scratchy hatching. But and then you lay that cloud cover over it, and all of a sudden it turns into like a proper landscape. And I just love this stuff here with the Pteranodon swooping in, and you can see him like running out of ink like halfway through the stroke, or like most of the way, and he's like, "Fuck it, I don't care, I'm still going." It's crazy stuff. It's like smudgy, and flipping the page. Okay, so now the Pteranodon gets basically interrupted just right before it gets to the carcass because a scream is echoing out across the valley. And he's like, okay, never mind. This wasn't worth going after. Maybe I'll find something else. Yeah, and then we get this amazing fucking landscape shot.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah. It's funny. I've been reading Calvin and Hobbes a lot lately.
Oh, yeah. Calvin and Hobbes is like an undervalued source of artistic knowledge.
Oh, totally. It's but I've been marveling at the background, the landscapes. It's not quite the same as this, but not far off in terms of like really fast, scratchy, sketchy stuff that reads. Like it doesn't require. If you bring it up close to your eyes, it looks like nothing, and there's a certain sweet spot where you're like, holy shit, that's just incredible. Like that's like a pine tree or whatever.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It does look like, I don't know, the kind of thing where somebody likes to go off in the woods and just sketch all day.
Yeah.
And just incorporate it into a comic. And that kind of continues with the close-ups here, actually, with like really detailed close-ups of flowers and leaves, and as something goes running through the underbrush here.
Yeah, and that's your Swamp Thing apprenticeship there, like drew wild plants back in the day.
And we're also going to get some pretty cool looking lettering, actually, because this is also lettered by Steve Bissette. And actually, if we flip the page, there's quite a bit more of the lettering.
Yeah, I love this. The sound effects are great. And I have to say, like, I like the he's not, the body text lettering. I don't know what you'd call it, but it's quite loose.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's not labored over at all, but it sort of matches the overall aesthetic, which again it's sort of like loose, confident.
Mm-hmm.
You probably wouldn't want like a super rigorous, precise lettering style, right?
Yeah.
With this comic.
No, that wouldn't work. It really. That would kind of jar against the actual content, I think. And we're going to get more shots of more dinosaurs. So we're going to see that, Steve Bissette isn't exactly just sticking to a couple of characters to start with. He wants to really cover a lot of ground. Get our Styracosaurus. I'm not sure exactly what these ones are. Gallimimus, maybe. I was a bit of a dinosaur nerd when I was a kid, too. Not anywhere near the same extent.
I think they're hearing the mother T-Rex.
Yeah.
Right? And they're all sort of freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah, on the next page here, we get the elder brood mother. In, again, an insane close-up. Like, this thing is so wild. Like, the amount of texture on the neck here, everything really, but, just really thinking about putting all the veins, like all the wrinkles in to the skin.
I know.
Get, like, the markings around the eye here.
Yeah, the lighting is great. The scales are great. This is good. Like, you can use all this for the Clerg.
Oh, yeah, good call. Although, I mean, that would also extend how long I spend on every page, which is getting pretty long.
Yeah.
But she's the only one out of the brood who's familiar with the noise and knows that it means trouble. Scares off the egg sucker, which is a scavenger. That was what we were seeing scampering through the brush earlier. Here's the onk 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 of the mother T-Rex, and knows that once the brood has been raised, they're going to have to move on immediately. But I love just how much Steve Bissette loves drawing wrinkly lizard skin. it's so cool to see it because he just seems to be having a great time just coming up with
Yeah.
scaly textures.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's a labor of love.
Absolutely. And yeah, so now we're going to cut to the scavenger just running through the underbrush, because he got scared off by the brood mother originally, but the sound is one he's also familiar with in that it's the sound of something giving birth. And again, just so much wild shit going on in these pages. The first panel here where it's running through the underbrush and you get just these streaks of all the leaves and flowers just swooping by. More all sorts of different kinds of media. And then the close up here where it's licking its beak. And again, there's just so much scaly detail all over this thing.
It's also like what's amazing is there's different species of hatching. So if you look at the hatching in the eyeball, it's like it's like that kind of image kind of hatching where you get shine.
It's much more controlled.
Yeah. It's much more controlled because there's all kinds of hatching doing different things, giving you different textures throughout the comic, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. When I was reading the back matter in this, he kept wanting to describe this as being accurate, but also being vivid. And I feel like that's kind of served by the hatching that he's using when he's doing this really scratchy, quick kind of hatching, where it kind of brings a life to it. And Kayfabe pointed out the directional devices here with the lettering as the egg sucker here goes zipping back and forth through the underbrush. It's the kind of thing that I wish I could incorporate more often, but it's really cool when you see it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and just these like casual, like really, I don't know, like they look like studies, like like he had an animal that he was studying in the underbrush. It's like, well, not unless he time traveled, but. And then we get our huge shot off in the distance of the T-Rex because we don't want to get too close to it just yet. Of the T-Rex giving birth.
Yeah.
It's an amazing shot. And the amount of detail in this splash, like you almost get the impression he likes drawing trees and leaves as much as he likes drawing dinosaurs.
I think so. And I marvel at all the sort of shadows underneath the leaves that really give the sense of three-dimensionality. I mean, it's just a black and white comic. Like he's not using screens or anything. He's just creating layers of depth,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of it is just wanting to, wanting to draw the dinosaurs and being in love with drawing these things, but also wanting to give them a proper world to kind of move around in.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I like spaff. Spaff is a good sound effect.
I like that one, yeah.
Yeah.
And now we're a lot closer as she's giving birth to the last of the eggs. And gross stuff as she's like, just like oozing and bleeding while she lets go of these eggs. But it's, again, amazing stuff. I like what he's doing here with the eggs where they're steaming. And he gets, I think this is like dry brush white media for the smoke, which is like, oh, shit, that's so smart. Why didn't I think of that? But anyway, this is the character this is the species anyway that he wants to draw the most of. So we're going to get a bit of time with this. So page 18, on the top here, it's interesting because the Tyrannosaurus itself is so tightly hatched and, well, not just hatched, but like all the textures on it are very specific. And then the background is so loose. And just it looks like random hatching, but if you look a little closer, it's like, well, actually, we can see a little bit of that hill with like some branches with some bones that are strewn around. But it feels like, the background here would have been done pretty quick.
And well, everything looks steamy, and he's really got. There's a lot of like special effects he's doing, but it's all done with ink.
Yeah. No, it's extremely impressive stuff. And again, this longer shot of the hill. The amount of detail he's getting in this underbrush. All the I don't know, just the terrain he's working on. It's a little intimidating, really. And yeah, we're getting more of the narration as she kind of describes the conception and how basically just everything she relates, everything she thinks of relates to meat. It's like that's all she really understands, except for the conception thing was somehow not a territorial thing or trying to eat somebody. And these eggs, even though they smell like blood, it's her blood, and she just kind of knows that these aren't for eating. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it's well written actually, and they were not meat to each other. They had attacked without killing. Like it's a good. He's trying to get into the mindset of an animal.
Of something that runs off of instinct, yeah.
Yeah.
Without anthropomorphizing it at all.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing to do, or it seems like it to me anyway. So after having given birth, it buries the eggs and then just lets out with a huge cry, and that's kind of what we're going to end on. But this is I can't even imagine how often Steve Bissette has drawn something like this page, the last one, where it's just a Tyrannosaurus screaming.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, he's been probably drawing of some version of this for years, right?
Yeah. And wild thing to end on.
Very cool.
Again, I get stuck looking at the brushwork because you can see the strokes he's taking, and they seem, again, pretty purposeful. But like he knows what he's going to do to fill in all the detail. I kind of wish I had that kind of focus. And then we're going to get a whole bunch of support material in the back here. And this is kind of going to be a thing for Tyrant. First thing he starts off with is rant, where he basically tells you, oh, shoot, there's so many back matter things that I'm kind of forgetting what this one was about.
These are letters, right? I think he
Yeah.
must have sent out advance copies or something.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Because, I mean, he's got letters from, let's see, he's got one from Neil Gaiman here. And let's see, there was one from John Fishner, who is the guy who designed all of these models on the back. Yeah. Also, the guy who runs Moondogs, which, if you recall, in the 1963 comics, was an ad that kept coming up, was for Moondogs comic book stores, which will be open eventually in the future.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, eventually this would be a letters page, which I get the impression if any paleontologists wanted to write in, they would get pride of place, and they could correct him, and he was really welcoming that. He talks about like how he was obviously going to get a few things wrong, maybe even a lot of things wrong, and he was going to try and correct everything he could on the fly. So it's interesting to think of what it would have looked like theoretically, like 10 issues down the line with a bit more correction from some industry professionals. And we also get a shot from the ash can here on the rant page of the birthing sequence that he kind of retconned. Because originally he had the Tyrannosaurus more standing. And then on the finished version, had it more squatting and kind of corrected the forearms as well. So like he was planning on correcting everything, but, as soon as he got new information. Like there was an insane amount of research in this comic.
Yeah. It's funny because we were talking about before we started recording about like what would be the analog for like what are the other obsessive comics like that, and then of course on the back cover with the ads you've got an ad for the complete scripts of From Hell, and of course that was another signpost, I think, in terms of that was a very scholarly comic with like tons of endnotes, and you can. I'm sure Bissette drew some, maybe, I don't know, subconscious inspiration from that project. Like, he says in that
whole thing,
yeah, he says in this My Rant, which, by the way, is perfect. Like,
that's a good one.
This whole comic, like from front to back, is like just machined, like it's like optimized to go, and it's sort of tragic that it doesn't get very far. But you know, he talks about in the Myran about this is this is a graphic novel. It's you know, like it's a serious work, and I also
it's
like
interesting too because he's talking about at this time how a single volume graphic novel isn't really viable.
Yeah.
Not in 1994 anyway. And then you think about today, and it's like, well, that's like the most viable way to make comics these days.
Oh, it's crazy. Like it's like the floppy has become almost this like niche luxury good.
Yeah,
Like
it's
to spend $7 or $8 on like on a floppy, you know, like it's this total decadent like thing now, and that the main way you buy comics are these little graphic novels that are everywhere.
Yeah, which can be distributed by Scholastic.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the main point.
You know, I like too in this Myrant thing how he talks about like the limitations of film, and like how you know, like no one would ever greenlight something like this, but you know, like you wouldn't be able to do it justice in a feature-length film. And
No.
I found that really inspiring. Like, you know, as someone who, you know, I've you know, like written some sci-fi novels that are like totally, you know, they just they wouldn't exist in like they wouldn't work in a.
I don't know.
Well,
no, first narration, like, it could work.
Yeah, I mean, but like, but there's something about like working in a medium like writing or comics where you're totally in control of the ecosystem. You call all the shots, and
you might take some hints and like suggestions and everything, but you're still, everything that comes out is because of you. Yeah.
Like I find that like enormously super inspiring, you know?
No, for sure. And this is a book, he says in the Myrat that this is really only ideal for comics. I mean, you know, he could theoretically have done it as a prose novel as well, but seeing as how he's such a good artist, obviously you don't want to leave out that aspect. That's kind of the main draw, really, if you're a casual like me. But I also like this little bit down here with the Tyrant teletype, where he's talking about recent dinosaur-related movies that have come out.
Yeah.
Like Tammy and the T-Rex, which is absolute garbage from what I've seen. And like Pumpkinhead 2, like anything that has even remotely related stuff. Because at this time, Steve Bissette owns and operates a video store, which I found strange.
Yeah, that's right.
Like he got in on it with a buddy, and he's like part of the management, and that was kind of what he did around like after Swamp Thing. It feels like where he just kind of got out of comics. Like he'd do the odd thing, but it wasn't his primary source of income, which has always been the impression I would have gotten.
Yeah,
but it's like no, his money was all in fucking VHS tapes in 1994. Just more like he did so much writing in this comic too. Like not in addition to the actual story, just like articles. Gives like a 3 or 4 page, a 3-page review of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I mean it's just I read like most of it, but I didn't get through all of it. But it just you know, he's been, this is a passion project, like, and he's it's almost like he's just like, I got to stuff this thing with everything.
And again, I think it speaks to trying to attract the right crowd.
Yeah,
where he's trying to get other people who are nuts about dinosaurs to get in on this, because that's really who it's aimed for. He was talking about trying to eventually get it into museums.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. There's the 4 archetypes of the dinosaur movie. And there's the gizzard, because dinosaurs don't have appendixes. So this is this is his notes section here, which gives you a page-by-page breakdown of basically him either giving you the reasons why he made decisions that he did, or correcting himself in a way that he didn't have time to do in the artwork. And he even gives you the lesser-known dinosaurs that make an appearance, which I appreciate because I would never remember what they were called. And then a little cartoon here that was going to repeat, which I didn't think was particularly funny, but okay. It's fun that it's in there, I guess. It's just kind of more stuff. There's a lot of stuff in here.
You get value for money.
You do. And it's interesting hearing about what his economic model for this book was, because it didn't have a huge print run, like at all, by the sound of it. It sounds like because he went through multiple reprints on this, and it sounds like the model was every time he'd do another issue, he'd relist his last one. And then, so he would, just kind of add to the total circulation number. And eventually, like the final circulation of Tyrant #1 was like 33,000 copies, which is like, these days that's okay. It's not bad at all. In 94, like, geez, I guess for an independent, it's pretty good. But and he would have kept building off of that theoretically, except by the time he got to issue 4, distribution in comics completely changed, and his model got fucked.
Yeah, it's a shame that he couldn't have gotten started on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah. I wonder if it would have hit a little bit earlier.
Yeah, maybe. I'm pleased to note that I have a first printing, though, of this issue.
Hey, cool. Do I?
First printing, printed in Canada.
I need my glasses. This is vital information. Okay. First printing as well, yes. Okay, good.
Nice.
One of like maybe 20,000.
Yeah, it's not bad. I got this for $5.
Yeah, I think I was actually comparable.
It's a good deal.
Yeah, no, I was waiting for a while for this to pop up online. Yeah, I had like this on my want list for a while, and then it finally popped up. It's like, oh shit, that's gonna cost real money, because I waited for it for so long, and it's like, yeah, like $4. It's like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I think I got mine for $5.
Yeah. Still haven't seen #4 pop up, so I'll have to keep my eye out for that.
Yeah.
But no, this is an incredible fucking comic. Like, the amount of love in this thing is just off the charts. So I do plan, I think I'll at least hit #2 and 3, which are the other issues I have at some point. I got to go over #3, which is the gestation period issue. Have you taken a look at that since?
No, I'll read it though, and we'll do it with you.
Fucking wild. It's like abstract, but like it still adheres to what the fetus it's insane looking stuff. So we'll go. I'll go over that at least anyway. I don't know if you want to join me on that one, but we'll see how it goes.
We'll see maybe
for sure. But yeah, anyway, that's gonna do it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for joining me, Jay.
Oh, pleasure. This is a great comic.
Yeah, absolutely. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications. Go over and subscribe to my Patreon. Gives you early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions, and you can join the Blood Force Discord server. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.